No creature is more powerful than the lion, and yet the puny tortoise lives longer than any other beast. Even the mighty lion must treat weaker animals with kindness if they are to live and prosper. Strength alone is not enough. He must learn the virtue of kindness also. Hadid would do well to remember this when he becomes elder, as one day he surely will. We've talked a lot about souls before, but the Al-Balad event is the first time the afterlife in Dragon Quest VII's world is addressed. We'll get to that soon enough. When you first arrive at the Great Desert, you won't be let into the nearby town. It's only after you visit the nearby temple palace's ruins and meet the elder's son, Hadid, who tells you about the nearby settlement. Al-Balad at first seems very similar to Ballymolloy. A lot of people were taken away by monsters. The difference is that here it wasn't the women being taken away but all the young people, and the ones doing labor are the people that were taken away. The queen of Al-Balad ordered to build a Sphinx, which she thought would repel the monsters. This only stirred up the hornet's nest though and attracted Orgodemir, who now has all the young people working to build still a Sphinx, but now evil, so it attracts monsters instead. This reminds me a great deal of Dragon Quest V, where you are enslaved and Hell built an Egypt-inspired temple. Except now it's slaves building a Sphinx for the monsters. The area itself is a bit Persia-inspired, but the Sphinx is clearly Egyptian. The monsters also demanded for one maiden every year, and the queen offered herself up. It's similar to Dragon Quest III's Orochi event in that sense, especially since young women are hiding in storage rooms in both. Except now the maidens aren't there to fatten up the monster, but they pray to it, which grants it strength. Which is, of course, similar to Emberdale, except now they are forced to do it. It's no use to just wait, so despite being advised against it, you go back to the destroyed temple palace, team up with Hadid to take down a monster and bury the dead. The monster had a pendant, which leads Hadid to believe the queen teamed up with the monsters. It's also only after the queen offered herself up that the sun went out. At least in the English localization, she seems to be a reference to Queen Firth's from Dragon Quest V. But here it's not someone seemingly good turning out to be a monster, but someone seemingly affiliated with the monsters turning out to be a selfless ruler. The sky turned dark after the Sphinx was finished. It had nothing to do with the queen. And she used the pendant to bribe the monsters and to send her people a letter, which is how all this is communicated. The elder then, after hearing how you dug those graves, gives you a seal that you can show around to prove to people how great you are, which opens up a second layer to everything in the village. You learn that besides burying the corpses, Hadid had a second goal. He wanted to find a serpent with golden horns living in the river Nihil that appears to have once been the people's guardian. He doesn't find it, but you can get its skull from the present. The archaeologist who found it only wants to stay in the past as compensation, more on him later. When you return to the past, the elder dies. Hadid becomes the new elder, which is just a thing in the Dragon Quest VII world, that positions like elder or mayor are hereditary. You'd need the abbey to change your fate. Back to the burial, the elder's coffin is probably only Christian because he wasn't important enough to justify making another model. And similarly, I have no idea why they don't bury him like everyone else, but instead float him down the Nile. Usually, funerary boats were placed in dry graves instead of dumping corpses into the Nile, but we'll talk about their religion later. For now, you also dump the serpent's skull, which makes the sea foam up and the sun come down to revive the thing. It's unknown where the one from the past is, must have died outside of the water and somehow ended up on a different continent. Its corpse was also not locked away by Orgodemir since it's in the present before the rest of the island, but it's best not to think about that. What I find interesting about the revival scene is that not only does this confirm the resurrection beliefs that the people have, but part of the sun combining with the Nile for this miracle, meaning fire and water, suggests a holy or magical property in both, yet people only worship the earth spirit, but more on that later. The serpent is a tortoise which serves as a rafter, which I find funny. You could have and later do replace it with a rafter. If you played Monsters 2, you might remember the serpent from that game that also allows you to traverse bodies of water by forming a bridge and letting you walk across its massive back. That's what I expected would happen. Either way, you arrive at the Sphinx. The dungeon is similar to the pyramid in Dragon Quest III in the sense that it's filled with traps and puzzles. And after beating the monster, you remove 2 gemstones at the top, which makes the Sphinx collapse. Mechanisms involving gemstones in the eyes of statues are a common trope. As one of many examples, the Talon's Tower in Dragon Quest V has you insert gemstones into the eyes of a dragon statue in order to progress. I'm not sure whether I can call this a reference since it's so common. The Sphinx collapses, you fall in the river, everyone miraculously survives. Again, they're not worshipping the water spirit despite the river apparently being holy to them, and you're hailed as the savior, something that is even carried on throughout history. Unlike on most islands, here history was preserved and is even honored. You're recognized and get a hero's welcome. The people there remember the history even better than you do. They say an item was passed down to you which makes you go back in time to actually receive your reward, one of the eyes of the Sphinx. So why are they so well connected to their past? I've mentioned the erasure of history so often, but why was it so well preserved here? Well, it wasn't. If you remember the archaeologist from before, he found out more about the ancient world in a day from his new perspective than in his entire life's work outside. It was very badly preserved. In fact, it was entirely locked away. I believe it might have been the archaeologist's influences along their detailed religious knowledge being correct and their close ties to tradition and their own history which allowed their knowledge to stand the test of time. Al-Balad in the present day, in contrast, lost its traditions after it was revealed that the Father of the Flame doesn't really exist. So the spirit of the earth exists. Rebirth was at least partly proven. And yet, when you first arrived, the place seemed God-forsaken like any other. What's the meaning behind this? As you later learn, the Almighty split up into 4 elemental spirits. You already learn about their existence from a book. I would equate a belief in only the Earth Spirit with a sect that only worships one part of the Holy Trinity. The real-life equivalent would be, for example, a Gnostic sect that only worships Jesus, but not the God that created the material realm. But that's not that important. I believe the people's worship was reduced to only the Earth Spirit since it's going to later be located in this region. Part of the Earth Spirit was infused into Lala and therefore maybe part of it lives on, but the bottom line is that the spirit can't protect the people because it's not there. Even if their beliefs are correct, it doesn't amount to anything. They have a pot that's supposed to protect them, but even if it keeps Al-Balad safe, it didn't do much for the rest of the people. And ultimately, their faith isn't what saves them. They falsely attribute a lot to the Earth Spirit, for example the healing magic, but it's pretty clearly defined by now that believing in the Almighty isn't where healing magic comes from, but instead it uses UMP like any other spell. Monsters can learn healing spells and so on, it's just magic. If you've been paying attention, this is a common theme in this game. Instead of believing in the Earth Spirit, the people may as well have believed in a Father of the Flame. If anything, their beliefs and prayers might have strengthened the monster. The one who saved them is you, and at most you're related to the water spirit through the mark on your arm. So reincarnation, the afterlife and the Almighty himself appear in their sacred text. The people of the island know things they shouldn't know. Presumably this is all because they've been able to preserve history in the past as well. This suggests a time when the Almighty was alive, but there's no point in analyzing all the foreshadowing since we'll soon enough find out for ourselves. It is however thematic that this island that is closely tied to its history reflects the Dragon Quest franchise's history through all those references I mentioned. On a first playthrough, where you don't know that the spirits are locked away yet, the Sphinx might seem like the reason for them being forsaken too. It was built as a likeness of the Earth Spirit, or a part of God. As we know, you're not supposed to do that. And it was what started all their problems. Either way, the situation with this Sphinx is ironic, and in its construction there's another idea repeated. Never work with monsters. Not a single deal has in any way, shape or form worked out for anyone. Be it the queen offering herself up, the maidens praying, or the people constructing the Sphinx in hopes they'd be let go. They weren't let go, it attracted more monsters, strengthened existing monsters and it darkened the sky. And of course this will continue to keep happening. I mentioned a lot of times that a lot of fault can be found in the people, be it cowardice in Ballymolloy or ignorance in Ambervale. It's human weakness that drives them into making these terrible deals. And even a hero can't defeat the flaws out of the humans they're supposed to protect. People will continue to work with monsters and it will continue to absolutely suck. And even if they are the most virtuous people, the monsters will just plant evil in their hearts.